The evening wind hummed low across the valley, carrying the scent of rain and something older. A memory that none of the pigs dared to name. Pig 1 stood on the ridge of golden straw fields, the same place he once built his house, and felt the world pause between breaths. Pig 2 tightened his leather gloves, hammer still in hand, his eyes darting to the forest where the mist moved like wolves in waiting. Pig 3, the quietest, leaned against the oak fence, tracing the scars on his arm, remnants from a time the wind had a voice. They had rebuilt their lives from ash and fear, but now that voice was returning. A deep rumble stirred the horizon, soft but steady, as though the clouds themselves were growling. The brothers exchanged a single look, a shared dread masked beneath practiced calm. Far off, the trees bent, bowing not to the storm but to something walking beneath them. Would you still follow if the stars whispered your name? Night descends without warning. The pigs rushed back to their workshop, a sprawling barn made of mixed straw, wood, and brick. Their shared creation after years of rebuilding. Inside, the walls are lined with half-finished contraptions, wind turbines, echo chambers, brass tubes that hum when the wind passes through them. Pig 2 paces, muttering that storms don't move like this. Pig 3 watches the door, listening to the howl that now carries words. Pig 1 lights a lantern, its flame bending sharply as if drawn toward the window. They know this silence. It's the same breath that came before the last destruction. Outside, the forest breathes, not with life, but with memory. The mist forms shapes that almost resemble wolves before unraveling again. The pigs step out together, drawn to the wind's strange pull. Pig 3 carries a crossbow slung over his back. Pig 2 shoulders a toolkit, the clinking metal echoing like nervous heartbeats. Pig 1 clutches an unfinished brass device that hums faintly. The air grows heavy, and for a fleeting second, the forest seems to whisper their names. A sudden gust sweeps through the trees, carrying faint echoes of laughter, deep and ragged, like the sound of splintering wood. Pig 2's grip tightens on his hammer. Pig 1 looks skyward, whispering that the wind feels alive. Pig 3 raises his crossbow, scanning the tree line. For a heartbeat, they see it. A massive shadow moving between trees, impossibly fast, almost fluid. Then the forest falls still again. Only the leaves tremble, whispering warnings in the voice of the storm. They retreat toward the barn, fear sitting heavier than the night air. Inside, Pig 1 spreads blueprints across the table. Drawings of a machine shaped like a heart, surrounded by spiraling pipes. It listens, he whispers. Pig 2 frowns, shaking his head. Pig 3 doesn't speak. The wind rises again, slamming the shutters open. Outside, the trees bow lower, and a voice whispers through the crackling air. A voice that once promised destruction. It says their names. Slowly, the lanterns flicker out. The storm lingered through dawn, leaving the valley soaked in silver. Inside the barn, the brothers stood over their scattered designs. Blueprints drawn with trembling lines of ink and imagination. Pig 1 believed the machine could capture the power of the wind and turn it into a barrier of sound. Pig 2 doubted it, calling it foolishness born of fear. Pig 3 said nothing, his silence carrying the weight of too many memories. The wind moaned softly through the gaps in the walls as if eavesdropping. Pig 1 set down his quill, eyes burning with hope and exhaustion. If it worked once for him, he whispered, pointing to an old torn page marked the wolf's breath engine, then maybe it can work for us. The others looked up. Realization dawning that their enemy's curse might become their enemy's curse might become their salvation. The brothers worked without rest. Pig 2 forged the metal frame, sparks bursting like stars across the dim barn. Pig 1 adjusted brass coils that hummed faintly, when the wind blew near. Pig 3 stood guard by the open door, scanning the valley through the growing mist. Every clang of the hammer sounded like a heartbeat counting down. They spoke little, each lost in the rhythm of creation and dread. For the first time since childhood, they built something together. Not homes of straw, sticks, or brick, but a promise made of courage and noise. Outside, the clouds turned the color of ash, hiding what moved behind them. As the day faded, Pig 1's machine began to breathe. The brass pipes trembled, gears clicked in rhythm, and soft notes of wind-sung music echoed from its hollow core. Pig 2 stepped closer, awe and fear battling in his eyes. "It sounds alive," he whispered. Pig 3 nodded slowly. The sound grew deeper, resonant, shaking dust from the rafters. Then, silence. A faint trail of black smoke rose from the engine's heart. Pig 1 stepped back, clutching his chest. "It listened," he said softly, almost smiling. But in that silence from far beyond the forest came a second echo. Low, mocking, almost identical. The wind had answered back. That night, Pig 3 dreamed of the wolf, not as a creature of flesh, but of wind. It moved through the trees as shadow, its breath turning bark to ash. He woke gasping, hearing the same wind howling through the cracks in the barn. Pig 2 slept by the forge, hands still clutching his hammer. Pig 1 sat awake by the window, sketching new designs by lantern light. When Pig 3 rose, he saw what his brother drew. The same pattern that had haunted his dreams. A spiral, curling inward like a wolf's breath. The lantern flickered, and the spiral shimmered, as if alive. By dawn, the valley lay silent again. The pigs wheeled their unfinished creation outside, its metallic coils glinting under a pale sun. The machine hummed softly, feeding on the morning breeze. Pig 2 crossed his arms, muttering that it still lacked a power source. Pig 1 smiled, whispering that maybe power wasn't something you add. It's something you believe in. Pig 3 scanned the tree line. Something stirred just beyond sight. The wind rose, carrying faint laughter. A voice half human, half storm. The pigs froze as the grass bent toward the forest. The wolf was awake, and this time, he wasn't coming alone. The next morning dawned heavy and pale. Pig 2 worked in silence, metal ringing beneath his hammer like thunder held in chains. Pig 1 scribbled frantic calculations, pages covered with swirling runes and strange markings that seemed to hum faintly on their own. Pig 3 watched them both, torn between admiration and dread. He'd seen those markings before, carved into the trees after the wolf's first attack. When Pig 1 whispered that he'd found them in an old journal buried beneath their childhood home, Pig 2's hammer froze mid-swing. The sound that followed was worse than any roar. The quiet realization that their invention was built on something not entirely theirs. Something the wolf once claimed. Arguments cracked through the air like lightning. Pig 2 shouted that they were repeating history, trusting fragile things to hold back monsters. Pig 1 shouted back that dreams built their freedom once and could do it again. Pig 3 slammed his hand on the table, the sound slicing through their words. "The wolf doesn't want revenge," he said. "He wants what you're building." Silence fell. The machine in the corner began to hum, though no one touched it. The wind outside shifted, circling the barn like a heartbeat too close to the skin. That night, unable to rest, Pig 1 slipped outside. The wind was alive, carrying voices that whispered his name, pleading and promising all at once. He followed them to the edge of the forest where the trees pulsed faintly with green light. He felt it then, not fear, but recognition. The markings on his blueprints matched those glowing on the bark. He pressed his palm against one, and for an instant he saw a vision. The wolf, breathing life into a swirling heart of light, the same design he now tried to recreate. Pig 1 stumbled backward, realization burning in his chest. The wolf hadn't stolen from them. they had stolen from him. By dawn, Pig 1 returned pale and shaking. He confessed everything. The runes, the forest, the truth that the wolf's breath had been the original spark of their creation. Pig 2 dropped his hand. Pig 3 turned away, whispering that some truths were never meant to surface. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then Pig 2 asked the question they had all been avoiding. If this was his to begin with, what happens when we turn it on? Outside, the wind answered, a long, hollow sigh that bent every blade of grass toward the barn. As the storm gathered once more, the pigs stood before their creation. The machine pulsed faintly, drawing in the restless air as if feeding on the wind's memory. Pig 1 whispered that it was ready. Pig 2 shook his head, muttering that some things shouldn't be finished. Pig 3 stared at the horizon, where lightning moved like veins beneath the clouds. He spoke softly. Ready or not, he's coming. The barn door shuddered as a deep growl rolled across the valley. For a heartbeat, the wind seemed to speak, not howl. And the word it said was, home. The first strike came with the dawn. A wind so sharp it split the treetops like thunder. The pigs ran to secure the barn, but the air itself seemed to rebel. Doors slammed open. Hay and dust spiraled, the very walls trembling as if alive. Then, through the roar, came a voice that wasn't quite a voice, deep, layered, echoing with ancient power. You built with my breath, it said. Pig 1 froze. Pig 2 raised his hammer, his knuckles white. Pig 3 shouted over the storm, ordering them to the machine. As they turned it on, the gears screamed, spinning faster than they'd ever dared. The wind outside howled in fury, and for the first time it howled back. The wolf stepped from the forest, cloaked in storm light. His fur shimmered between gray and black, shaped more by the wind than by bone. Eyes like molten silver scanned the barn, and wherever they looked, glass cracked. Pig 3 took one step forward, trembling but unbroken. You won't take this from us, he said. The wolf smiled, a ripple through mist. I don't want to take, it said. I want to remember. The valley darkened, as though the clouds themselves bent in reverence. The pig's invention roared louder, glowing like a heart about to burst. The wolf spoke in a voice like wind through hollow pipes. What you built is the echo of what you took. Pig 1's heart pounded. He remembered the vision, the spiral of breath that once lived within the forest. Pig 2 lifted his hammer and shouted over the gale. We built it to end you! The wolf's smile widened. End me, he whispered, eyes gleaming. You are me. The wind tore through the barn, scattering tools, ripping open walls. The brothers were thrown backward, their creation screaming with life. Neither alive nor a machine anymore. The machine screamed, light pulsing faster and faster until it bled into the storm. Pig 1 shouted for Pig 2 to stabilize the coils. Pig 3 threw himself into the heart of the gale, slamming the barn doors shut against the wolf's power. For a moment, time fractured. The wind froze, every droplet suspended in the air. The wolf's voice echoed inside their heads. You can't destroy what breathes inside you. Pig 1's trembling hands hovered over the switch, his reflection flickering in the metal. He whispered, Then we'll set it free. And pulled. Light exploded outward, sound and wind colliding in a perfect circle. The valley fell silent. The wolf staggered, eyes widening, the wind around him unraveling into thousands of flickering motes of light. Pig 1 fell to his knees, gasping as the machine hummed softer now, glowing like a heartbeat fading into peace. The wolf stepped closer, no longer menacing, but mournful. You gave it back, he said quietly, voice human for the first time. Now you'll learn what it costs. The light vanished, leaving only rain and darkness. Pig 2 reached for his brothers, but where Pig 1 had been, there was only the faint echo of breath dissolving into the wind. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was worse. The barn lay in ruins, its walls bowed inward like broken ribs. Pig, too, crawled from the wreckage, coughing through ash and smoke, calling his brother's name until his voice cracked. Pig 3 stood motionless, his coat soaked and heavy, his eyes fixed on the faint trail of golden mist drifting where Pig 1 had vanished. "He's gone," Pig 2 whispered, voice hollow. Pig 3 shook his head. "No, listen." And beneath the rain they heard it, a faint hum coming from the heart of the machine, steady and alive, like someone breathing. They dragged what remained of the machine into the open air, its metal frame bent, but humming with strange rhythm. Pig 2 adjusted the coils, muttering that something was wrong. It was running without power. Pig 3 knelt beside it, watching his breath vanish into the fog. Then, as the hum deepened, a voice rose from within, quiet, uncertain but familiar. It said their names. Pig 2 stumbled back, eyes wide. Pig 3's hand trembled over the brass casing. "He's in there?" he said softly. The machine shuddered, releasing a spark of golden light that hovered in front of them like a living heartbeat. The voice grew stronger, echoing inside their heads, rather than through air. Pig 1's tone was calm, distant, like wind through hollow reeds. "You can't fight him with strength," it said. "Only with what he fears most, his own breath." Pig 2's face hardened. "You mean your invention," he said bitterly. The voice replied, "No, ours." Then the light faded, leaving behind a single strand of straw that glowed faintly in the dirt. Pig 3 picked it up, watching it twist like it was alive. "He left us a part of the storm," he whispered. Pig 2 exhaled shakily. "Then we finish what he started." By nightfall, the brothers rebuilt the machine's frame around the golden straw, winding it through the coils like a thread of living energy. Pig 2 worked in silence, movements steady, deliberate. Pig 3 watched the horizon where faint flickers of lightning returned beyond the forest. "He's coming back," he murmured. Pig 2 didn't look up. "Then we'll be ready." The machine pulsed once, brighter this time, echoing with the rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't quite human. The air began to move again, soft at first, then faster. The storm remembering its path. When the first thunderclap struck, they stood ready. The machine roared to life, glowing with a brilliance that lit the valley. The wind rose, bending the grass flat to the ground. Pig 2 tightened the final valve. Pig 3 gripped the crossbow that had belonged to his eldest brother. "When he comes," Pig 2 said, "don't let fear speak for you." The clouds churned, parting like a curtain to reveal eyes, silver and endless, staring down from the storm. The wolf's voice filled the valley once more. "You borrowed my breath," it said. "Now return it." Pig 3 raised his weapon, eyes fierce. "We will." The valley quaked as the storm descended. The wolf emerged from the clouds, his form shifting between flesh and wind, each breath reshaping the air. Pig 2 stood firm beside the roaring machine, sparks dancing in his eyes. Pig 3 steadied the crossbow, the golden straw glimmering through the coils like a heartbeat reborn. "You can't stop what breathes," the wolf thundered, voice echoing across miles. Pig 2 shouted back, "We're not stopping it. We're giving it back." Then he slammed the lever forward, and the machine howled, a chorus of every wind the wolf had ever stolen. The ground shook. The sky cracked open. The machine's roar turned into music, a deep, resonant hum that reached beyond hearing. The wolf staggered, claws digging into the earth as the wind around him twisted inward, pulled toward the shining coil. Pig 2 clung to the frame, shouting orders over the noise. But Pig 3's focus was elsewhere. He saw the mist, golden and soft, forming around the machine's core. Pig 1's voice rose above the storm, calm and sure. "Now," it said. Pig 3's eyes filled with tears as he aimed the crossbow. The arrow, wrapped in light, shimmered like dawn itself. He released it. The arrow soared through the storm like a streak of sunlight cutting through wind and shadow. It struck the wolf square in the chest, and for a moment time fractured. The wolf's body burst into wind and light, unraveling into hundreds of swirling spirals, each one carrying a whisper, a memory, a breath. The storm screamed as it folded inward, pulled into the machine's heart. Pig 2 stumbled forward, shouting his brother's name into the chaos. Pig 3 stood motionless, his hand trembling from the shot, eyes wide as dawn broke through the clouds for the first time in years. The machine's light flared once more. Then silence. The wind stilled, and the valley exhaled. Pig 2 dropped to his knees, panting, eyes searching for any sign of movement. The coils glowed faintly, then dimmed, revealing something small and weightless hovering above. A single glowing straw. Pig 3 reached for it, his fingers brushing its light. The straw shimmered, forming Pig 1's voice once more. "You built more than walls. You built faith." The light scattered into dust, rising toward the clearing sky. Pig 2 closed his eyes, whispering a thank you carried on his breath. As the dawn spread across the valley, the brothers stood together amid the ruins, exhausted, soaked, but alive. The wind moved gently, playful now, curling through broken grass and lifting bits of straw like laughter. Pig 2 turned to Pig 3. "He's gone," he said quietly. Pig 3 smiled faintly. "No," he whispered, "he's everywhere." The machine, now still and silent, caught the rising light. For a moment it glowed again, a single pulse, like a final heartbeat. The valley was free, but the air would forever carry his breath. The valley healed slowly. Weeks passed, and the air grew still and kind again. Pig 2 rebuilt the barn, this time not as a fortress, but as a workshop open to the breeze. Pig 3 tended the fields where the storm had left scars, sowing seeds that took root faster than ever before. At night, they sat beneath the stars, listening. Sometimes, when the wind blew just right, they swore they could hear a soft hum, the rhythm of the old machine. Or maybe Pig 1's laughter carried home. "Have like this," Pig 2 murmured. Pig 3 smiled faintly. "He's still here." The new barn wasn't filled with weapons or walls, but music. Pig 2 built instruments from the machine's old pieces, pipes that sang with the wind, strings that hummed softly when touched by air. Pig 3 called it the Breath House. Travelers who passed through the valley stopped to listen, claiming the melodies healed their fear and sorrow. Sometimes the notes would rise suddenly into laughter, wild and bright, scattering the crows from the fields. The brothers never silenced it. They knew who it was. One afternoon, a group of young animals arrived. Foxes, rabbits, even a few piglets from distant villages. They asked the brothers to teach them how to build things that could last. Pig 2 laughed and handed them blueprints smudged with old soot. Pig 3 said gently, "Start with what's weak. That's where strength hides." They worked together until sunset, filling the valley with hammers, laughter, and wind songs. Above them, the clouds curled like slow-moving waves, calm, endless, and free. That night, the wind rose again, not as a storm, but as a whisper. Pig 2 awoke to the sound of it playing through the pipes, a melody, slow and soft. Pig 3 joined him outside, and together they watched the moonlight dance on the fields. "He's still talking to us," Pig 2 said. Pig 3 nodded. "No," he answered softly. "We're finally listening." The wind shifted, curling gently around them both, carrying warmth, laughter, and a promise that even what's gone still breathes, if you let it. Years later, the valley became legend. They said the pigs who once feared the wind turned it into song. Some swore they'd seen golden light rising from the fields at dusk. Others claimed the wolf's shadow still lingered in the forest, listening peacefully. Pig 2 grew older, his hands steady as ever. Pig 3's hair silvered like dawn. And when they were gone, the wind kept singing. It told their story. To every leaf, every seed, every child who stopped to listen. If fear could speak, the wind whispered, whose voice would it borrow?